you are ready to pay, actually, and run it through. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lingoni English. My name's Emily.
And I'm Brian.
And this is our 3-part series on culture and communication in the US.
Now, if you missed our first 2 videos, our first one was on interactions and communication. Our second one was on planning and invitations, and you can check both of those out right here. And now in this third and final one, we're going to be looking at restaurant culture and tipping.
On that note, I think it's time to get started.
Let's go.
So I think most of you probably know that America is definitely part of a tipping culture. But that isn't only for restaurants. We also tip other places as well. So in order to be prepared for that, let's go through a few different places that you should probably plan on tipping at.
So whenever you get a service done for you, like for example, if you get your car fixed, if you get your nails done, if you get your hair done, these kinds of services that you get done, you often tip for. Also, when you're taking a taxi or an Uber, it's generally nice to tip for those sorts of things as well. And if you're staying at a hotel and there's a bellhop or doorman, you often tip for that person as well.
When in doubt, maybe you should Google it. A lot of Americans won't say, "Excuse me, where's my tip?" But they would feel either like they did something wrong or that you were really rude if you don't tip in all of these different places. I know that it might seem like crazy to keep giving out money for stuff, but keep in mind that this is just part of the American culture. And the reason the prices are so low when you get your hair done is because a lot of the costs are actually for the products. And when you're tipping, you're helping pay for the actual work and the service.
Also, sometimes you can kind of go on the feel of where you're at too for whether or not you tip. For example, if I'm at a big chain and that's where I'm getting my car fixed and it's really expensive, I probably won't leave a tip. But if I'm at a small shop, like a ma and pa shop, we might call it, and if the service is good, and especially if I'm not spending so much money, I might give an extra $5 or so for a good service.
So how much should you tip at these places? Well, there's not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes it's a percentage. So if you're not happy at all, it can be 10%. And if you're super happy and you love it, it can be 20 or even more. But somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 20% is pretty standard. And also sometimes it's not a percentage at all. It's just a feeling. So like Brian said a moment ago, just tip $5 on top of it. You know, if I was going to get my nails done and it costs $20, I might just leave a few bucks there as a thank you.
All right, so here are a couple more specific guidelines for tipping at restaurants. So typically, people don't tip so much at fast food places. You might notice that there's a little tip jar at a fast food restaurant, or it looks like it, but it might actually be a donation thing. So you can decide if that's right for you. And when you're getting food to go, a lot of people don't tip for that. But again, it's one of those things where you can decide if you want to or not.
And then when you're at a what we call sit-down restaurant, so a restaurant where you're getting served by somebody, the same kind of numbers apply that I said earlier for tipping. So 10% means like that was pretty unsatisfactory. I know you might be thinking, wow, why is that not 0? It's very rare that you tip nothing because a lot of times if there is a problem, it's not really the server's fault and they're the ones who get the tip. That's a whole different story. But again, so like 10 would be like absolute minimum, I would say. And then 20 is like you're really satisfied, you're happy. And of course, if something very special happened, then maybe you would tip a little bit more than that.
And I've even had experiences where servers have been actually rude to me, and I still feel bad tipping nothing, so I still tip about 10%, but that's just me. All right, let's talk about the end of the meal when it's time to pay. And this is something that really kind of screamed out to me when I got to Germany because it was pretty different from in the US. So when you finish your meal, the server will probably come by and take the bill and leave it on the table and say, "Here you go, this is for when you're ready." And if you're not ready, you can go ahead and take your time. But if you want to leave sooner rather than later, then you can do that.
So when you are ready to pay, don't be alarmed when your server actually takes your credit card away from the table. That is standard practice in the US, although it is changing a little bit. They're actually just going to run that in their computer system, and then they'll bring you back a bill that has a breakdown of everything, plus your total, a line where you can write your tip, and a line for you to sign. So after you've tipped and signed, your waiter will take that and then put the rest of the charge on your card that was from the tip. And one more thing about the bill. If you're eating at a restaurant with maybe 6 or more people, sometimes 8 or more people, you might see something on the bill called a gratuity charge. Now, don't freak out. This is perfectly normal. The restaurant has already made a percentage that they're taking from the bill as their tip. But as a server from the past, I do know that big groups of people are much harder to serve, and sometimes the tip can get lost along the way if everyone's paying separately. So when you see this, no one's trying to cheat you. It's totally normal. It's already the tip, and you don't have to tip on top of it unless you had exceptional service.
Also, when you're paying cash, sometimes you could say something like, keep the change if that's the amount that you want to tip. Or after they give you your change, they might walk away, and it's very common to just leave the tip on the table, typically under a cup or under a plate or something, so they can still see it. And then you're all done. You can leave the restaurant. And it sounds kind of funny now because in Berlin, at least, you always tell the server, take an extra €2 for yourself or something like that. And the idea of leaving the tip behind on the table right now sounds a little strange to me. But I know that when I'm back home, I still do that.
Yeah, it's totally normal.
All right, so something else you might find kind of weird about American restaurants is that it's really common to make alterations to your order. So when you're ordering food, maybe you're getting a hamburger and you might tell the server, hey, can I have no onions on that, please? Or can you replace this kind of sauce with that kind of sauce? This is pretty common and it's pretty acceptable. Of course, if you can't do it, the server will tell you.
And then another thing, it's quite common in America to take the rest of your food to go. I almost never do this in Germany unless maybe I'm at a pizza place. But if you only need half the food that was on your plate, American portions are huge.
Yeah, this is why this is so common.
Yeah. Then it's totally normal to ask for a to-go box is what I usually say. Some people say a doggy bag, or can I just take this to go? And it's no problem.
Do you know why it's called a doggy bag?
No.
Because you take the leftovers home and you give it to your doggy, I think.
I'm eating those leftovers.
Yeah, me too.
Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching Lingoni English. Also, if you haven't already, why don't you go check out the Lingoni English app? There, we've got tons of interactive exercises, worksheets, podcasts, and so much more to help you take your English to the next level.
We'll see you there. Bye.
You can take the bill. Sometimes it comes in like a little black book.
I'm sorry.
You might see some words that are